All right, hello everybody.
Hello and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Canada Supply Curiosity Club. We are your hosts this evening. I'm Will Lacoma, and this is Tobias Berblinger. Together we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you. Our series highlights an eclectic group of speakers, experiences, and workshops across a broad range of subjects in the areas of culture, design, science, technology, art, fabrication techniques, and lost common knowledge.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are now all members, provided you adhere to our philosophy. Ex curiositas scientia. We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin, the lightning bolt.
Do we need to stand up?
Oh, no.
You can if you want to, though.
Yeah.
The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more.
And now we are very happy to introduce Chris Hoffman of Rhino Motors. Rhino Motors is committed to solving the short-distance commuting challenges of individuals, government, and industrial customers, while at the same time delivering an exciting and enjoyable riding experience. The innovative, self-balancing one-wheel electric scooter is poised to offer customers an iconic product that will turn heads and provoke strong emotional reactions. There it is.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. My first interaction with these guys was kind of a little flurry of emails and questions like, what tools would you not leave home without? And I said, well, my calculator and my caliper. And the next question back was, what kind of calculator? So it's like, all right, I like these guys. So I'm going to show you what this bike does. I'll just fire it up for a second so we can all kind of get a sense of it. I ran the battery down pretty much today, so we can't ride it, but I think it's got enough in it where you can get a sense of what it does. So it balances like a Segway scooter front to back, so it just kind of wants to stay up. So the way the control works is if you lean forward, it just drives back under the center of gravity, so it stays in balance. But the thing that made it rideable was you could steer it. So now I can actually throw my weight around back and forth without having to turn my body. The first prototype we built didn't have any steering at all, so you're way down in front with your spine all in the wrong position and you're trying to get the bike to steer. So now the bike actually has this pivot axis way back on a rake angle behind you. So it's actually like riding on the handlebars of a motorcycle, and you move the handlebars forward and connect a linkage back to the steering yoke. So it's as if you're going for a ride on somebody else's bike on the handlebars and then throw away the back of the bike. So it feels like you're riding a bicycle. So my muscle memory gives me the sensation, oh, I'm falling, and I steer into it, and it's the same effect. So it's really easy to learn how to ride, but it's like half the bike. So I can go into an elevator and I can do this little move like this and push the button, and nobody cares. So I can go onto the train, it takes up no more space than the mobility scooters that people ride around. So it's like fits in between the cracks of urban transportation in a kind of a unique way that I didn't really discover until I started riding the bike. So it's just its evolution away from, the original idea of the bike was my daughter and I were riding out to go fishing, and she says, hey Daddy, I saw this bike in a video game. Could you actually build that? And I'm like, what does it look like? So she draws me this sketch and shows it to me in the car. I'm like, wow. So we talked about it for half an hour, and then I went back home and started looking on the internet, and all right, so balance technology, what's that? Where do I buy a gyro? I read about the Segway scooter, they were like $500 a piece. And so I look, radio controlled helicopters with gyros, you can buy the gyro. Oh, okay, $200. And I think, well, there must be a device inside that. So you look harder, here's this analog, $20. Okay, I can buy, well, it's a BGA, there must be some little board with, with the BGA, so SparkFun. Okay, SparkFun, you guys all probably know what SparkFun is. Here's a nice little board with a cable coming out with a gyro on it. Great. I can't kill it on that idea. So all right, how about servo motors? I'm thinking auto industry, couple grand. Start looking around. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, this is not a servo motor implementation. This is a DC motor where the feedback is the gyro. It's an open loop system with a gyro. So as long as the gyro's, on 0, everything works. And if it deviates from 0, it just drives back under the center line of the bike to get back to 0. So I don't need a servo with an encoder on it and all that tight closed loop servo stuff. I need electric scooter motor, $35. Well, all right, can't kill it on that level. So motorcycle tire, can I mount a motorcycle tire on an automotive rim? 17-inch rim, no problem. Timing belts, found those. And I'm like, okay, badass circuit board, a nice little DC motor controller, battle bots, cottage industry, robot power, $150. 150 amp DC motor controller. All right, the rest of it's just sheet metal at that point. So we started just playing around with it. I found a software guy on the internet. I found him because he had built a wooden Segway scooter and had a little website on how to do it. So I sent him some pictures, and he came out to my house to do that first sniff test. Are you crazy? So apparently I passed that test. So he got involved, and that was 5 years ago. He just emailed me the other day. That was the first email. It was 5 years ago. So we put together this first prototype, and it balanced, but you couldn't steer it. And we tried to raise money and did some round tables, and just kept playing around, and then realized, this is just not going to work. I mean, it's not rideable. So we thought, well, maybe we should just kill it. And then we thought, well, let's just do something. So we came up with this idea, add steering, which doesn't make sense at all. I'm sitting on it, and I turn the handlebars, and the wheel go that way. The body, what's going to happen? I don't know. So we built one, and we literally loaded the software into it, and I was riding it around my street in 10 minutes. Blew me away. So that's how the whole thing started. It was just kind of slapping some stuff together, trying to do as little as possible, no core technology development. If we can't buy something off the shelf, I'm not going to get involved in core technology development before I even know if this thing's going to work. So prototype often, as fast as you can. That thing, I found this guy, Greg Stormer, who was an industrial designer, perfect find, because the guy I had before that was all about all these concepts and talking, and he was just like, dude, let's just cut out some cardboard, old school, chalk it out on the floor and tape some cardboard together until it looks like something. And we sat in my shop for an afternoon and taped cardboard together until we got this thing to look right. I mean, we literally just cut it out with scissors and taped it together and stuck it on top of the wheel and looked at it and, and you just take the cardboard off and trace it on a piece of metal and jigsaw it out and weld it up and slap some Bondo on it, and it looks kind of producty. So, right? So and you put a little windshield on it, and away you go. So that's what started. So my background, I spent 15 years in the auto industry, kind of out of high school. I never went to college. Started getting donuts and running blueprints at this place, and it took me a year really to get my own drawing board, and I just kept going. I ended up being pretty good at it, and designed this big plant machinery for engine blocks and stuff. So I got to be a really good mechanical engineer. And then, in the middle of that, I'm in a punk rock band in the evenings playing shows, and then I had a recording studio for a little while. So I'd go do this quiet monastery work, and then go do this other thing in the evening. So that's kind of my lifestyle. Moved to New York City for 3.5 years just to get out of Detroit. And built sets for Broadway shows and did some of that, and then moved back to Detroit, and I got into consumer product design, so circuit boards and more higher end stuff, customers, market analysis, listening to sales guys, and thought I knew what I was doing, kind of feeling like a real expert, feeling like a really kind of guru, feeling like somebody that really knew what they were doing. And then I just got this other job at this Skunk Works kind of place that was run by this, I'm still not sure if it was a crazy man or a visionary. Because we would do things like sit in a room and do creative training for hours. Just write a story about an elephant migrating from Alaska to Hawaii with its baby, and just kind of write what that feels like. And we couldn't leave for an hour, so all right, or write me a story about a platypus who has this nose sensor that can sense, the motion of things underwater in total darkness, and what's that feel like? And after a while, it got kind of crazy, but in the middle of all that, I started realizing that maybe my drive to finish the first idea wasn't the right thing, so that's when I first started realizing maybe I need to just back off and give myself more time, look at things from a different vantage point, really start listening to other people. I started realizing my ego was kind of in my own way, and I started doing ecstatic improv dance and contact improv, and I really just started this whole growth path away from being an expert and kind of being that guy that would, if you don't realize how great I am, I'll tell you kind of guy. And I got back to I just want to swim with the fish in the stream, because now I'm down with everything that's happening and my senses are a bit higher. And so this whole thing about the bike this has really been a process that's kind of allowed me to really get into that process in a way where I can control it, so I'm not working for somebody else. I'm following my vision. I kind of like it because it's edgy. It takes advantage of a lot of my personal interests, but it's also taught me this whole dance around doing product design where, there's a lot of times when you just have to wait. You just have to wait for things to gel. And there's a lot of reducing risk. So how do I reduce, there was the whole rideability thing. Don't just keep driving forward with what you have. Well, maybe I need to add some rideability, and that created this other opportunity. So now I've got rideability, and I've got product designing things. What's the other risk? Well, supply chain and manufacturing. Well, all right, so I went and found manufacturers that were happy to manufacture this bike at no cost to me for an exclusive in China. So I'm at a point right now, I'm auditioning 3 companies that are happy to take it. So now I put that in my business plan, and now my business plan is starting to have some equity, some real lower risk, real momentum. I've answered most of the questions. I've been very patient and not hustled my network. So I'm slowly building up my business contacts and slowly building up my relationships. And I've never hustled anybody or pushed it because I really haven't been ready. And I'm listening to my business advisors too, and they're telling me, you're not ready. But we're right at that point right now where we're ready. And is that my phone? Sorry. I usually have it on vibrate, but I turned it on today because we were doing this photo shoot. Anyways. So all this stuff's come together. I've been on the Gadget Show in the UK, 2 million viewers. German automobile TV show came out and shot for the whole day. We flew out here and shot for the whole day to see this bike. And then we've been on NPR, interviewed on NPR. And then the Seattle Evening News was going to come down tomorrow, but since it's going to be raining, they called it off. I'm in the London Science Museum on a permanent display with my first prototype. I haven't even sold a bike, and I'm in a freaking museum. So all this stuff's coming together. We've got my business plans ready, my term sheet, and all this stuff's happening. Got this call from Details this morning, and literally, the Oregonian has never called me. Don't even know I exist. So just saying, Portland Business Journal, yeah. So it feels really good, and so it's been a long process. Staying in the game, keeping your burn rate really low. I think I've probably, if you added it all up, the total cash that I've taken out of my pocket and put into this project, maybe 50 grand total for 5 years. So that's where I'm at right now. Questions?
So, is there, when you steer on that thing, is there a gyroscope that it's working against at all? Is it just a motor? It just goes front and back and it has that little, wow, that's super cool.
It's the size of a grain of salt, and they're actually down to $1 now. And that's all it's doing. It knows exactly what center of the earth is at all times, and if it deviates from 0, it just drives back under to get back to 0. And if you fight it a little bit, it just keeps trying harder. And if you fight it decent, it'll just keep trying. The curve just goes up. So if it's not getting there, it goes faster.
And then the pivot, the steering, is that just kind of it's just a pivot put up on there to help with your perception of how to lean, kind of?
No, it actually throws your weight around.
It does too. Okay.
So it's doing this.
Yeah.
So it's actually opposite from a bicycle. So I'm on a bicycle and I'm driving the patch underneath my center of gravity.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, the wheel kind of likes to stay. There's so much mass in the wheel that you're really swinging your center of gravity over the wheel,
Yeah.
but it feels like the same thing.
So everything up there, it's just basically a handlebar and a seat. It's the seat linked together, and all of the drive and everything is inside the wheel.
Correct.
Super awesome.
Yeah, so inside the wheel is a whole approach too, because out of the automotive industry, I learned about robotics and high-speed machining and all that stuff. So a hub motor is the wrong thing to do. Hub motor way too much stored energy, not much torque at 0 RPM. So there's two 5,000 RPM DC motors in there with a timing belt drive down to 10 to 1 down to the wheel. So when I move a little bit, those motors are...
Is it like is it a gear that runs on the inside?
No, it's a jack shaft. So 2 timing belts to a jack shaft, which goes to the hub, which has 5 lug nuts on it. I literally lay the bike on its side, take 5 lug nuts off, and then take the tire off.
Awesome.
And inside on the production bike will be electromechanical disc brake. So we've got a mechanical disc brake on a disc rotor operating with software. So picture a front wheel stand on a Ninja motorcycle with software.
So it could infinite wheel stand.
Yeah.
You got to patent that and put it on normal bikes.
Good point.
There you go.
Hey, good point.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
Whoa! You know, and then ride that
You're already always doing a wheelie, so it's just
Right. Yeah, so in this case, you're leaning it back. You know, so the farther back I pull it, the harder it stops.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I've got a brake.
So it's like a horse. You're just like,
Whoa, horsey. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, people don't get that. They see it on the internet and they go, well, how do you stop? Because I'm thinking you're going to go forward. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So I've been playing around with doing inverted pendulum kind of stuff like that.
Nice.
You know, you're doing your own like Segway type thing.
Right.
And but the dynamics of that are pretty interesting. Is this getting into secret sauce here to ask? Are you using a pretty standard inverted pendulum type of control scheme?
It's actually, that's a really good question because what we're doing is actually a combination of, like the Segway scooter, you get on it and it balances on 0. It's really hard and you go, you know, kind of thing, because the machine's in control of the balance, right? So for us, it's more of a soft, intuitive thing. It's sensing where you are and trying to help you balance in a way, which really makes it so gentle because I can get on this bike and it just sits there. I can stand above the bike and walk forward and it stays underneath me. It's just kind of feeling a deviation in a really gentle way. So if I push a tiny little bit, it just moves a tiny little bit forward. But if I want it to take off and it just takes off. So it's a nice, my software guy, I actually wrote him an email the other day because I was over at Earth Day and I was riding Baja across all these like moguls and stuff in the grass field. And I was like, man, this thing is like amazing. It just crawls right up out of there and goes back down and I can stand on one foot bike when I'm going into the curve and it was, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do is get that feeling of integration so it's with your body, not fighting your body.
But you could have gotten a good software guy.
Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a standard accelerometer gyro combo and kind of the standard balanced loop, but he does it in a way where it just kind of softens it a little bit and he plays around with it. He just, like dialing it in, he's got a wireless connection to the processor. He sits there with his laptop and I ride it around in circles. I'm gonna now do an update. I'm going, okay.
What's your microcontroller?
It's just this little ARM pick kind of thing, and it's all dedicated, machine code, so there's no operating system. It's he sized it just right, so it's really fast. We've actually got, on the production bike, there's 5 processors, so each gyro's got its own processor running a core balance loop, so the balance loop is running no matter what, so you can't interrupt the balance loop. So 5 gyros, so you're looking for a 2 out of 3, no matter what. Because like 2 gyros doesn't help you, because if you get 2 different numbers, which one's the right number? So you go for 3 and look for 2 out of 3 and throw the 3rd number out. So we're doing that in real time, and then there's our main processor, which is handling all the safety algorithms. So on this bike, for example, if you push down too hard, it'll beep at you, and if you're stupid, it'll make the whole bike vibrate, and then if you're really stupid, it'll throw the handlebars up in your face and actually slow the bike down. So that it's keeping it inside its performance window, really aggressively. And then as the battery wears down, for example, it goes through the same shutdown. So it'll start to beep, and then it'll start to buck, and then it'll actually lift the handlebars up and slow down to a point where you can't drive over 1 mile an hour. So it does a soft, shutdown.
I heard that it's at 20 miles an hour now, but are there any plans to make it faster?
We've talked about doing a land speed record. So, go a mile, there's really, if you do the math, it's kind of the performance curve goes really steep because you always need 30% on the top end to stay in balance. So it's the bike's geared to go 28 miles an hour, but you have to hold it at 20.
Yes.
So if you go into it, you need to drive out of something. There's enough headroom in the bike. So you look at that, and then the weight of the batteries, and the horsepower of the motors, and all that stuff. 20 is kind of in this nice little sweet spot for what we're trying to do.
So when you brake, does it actually process it all and actually go like you oversteer when you're steering on a bike? Does it go forward and then brake?
Yeah.
Or it just drops your weight back behind and then
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I grab the brake and it drives the wheel out in front of me.
Ah, so cool.
I think we're all looking at the cost target of your production bikes.
Well, I just had a talk with my. Go ahead.
That and when.
When? I know.
It's your most common question. All right, so we
I'm-
one.
All right. Well, I'm kind of talking $4,200 right now, but I'm getting encouraged to do a low volume kind of early, like 10 grand, 15 grand kind of thing.
And
But
your set says 3,500 on the spec.
yeah, or 3,500, and the numbers kind of floats around because I don't know what my cost of goods are yet. I've got a manufacturing partner in China right now that said that they can hit $1,200 for my cost of goods and start up my whole supply chain at no cost to me, and for a licensing agreement. Actually, there's 3 companies that I'm talking to that are all the way from a little mom and pop place to the second largest motorcycle manufacturer in China, which has got a $3 billion plant dedicated exclusively to electric motorcycles, which is half empty because everybody's building electric motorcycles in China right now because the laws changed. They're selling 2 million bikes there a year.
That's pretty ridiculous.
Right.
I just got back from Shenzhen. Wow.
Yeah.
Everyone's on a bike.
Yeah. So it's all like there's this constellation just like rolling over of where we're going to go with that. But
Will Geico insure it?
say again.
Will Geico insure it?
You know what? We've talked to insurance guys, and they says, "Oh, we'll just electric scooter check." They don't ask if it's got one wheel or two. It's like,
It's under, I'm pretty sure it falls under the basic moped rules for Oregon DMV, so, which I don't think you even need insurance for. You certainly don't need, endorsement for. So.
you don't, right? Exactly. Yeah, so we're hoping to hit that, put some headlights on it, turn signals, and away you go. But as far as liability insurance, like corporate liability insurance, it's like 30 grand a year for low line. Go ahead.
How fast can it go?
20 miles an hour. Yeah, so that's a nice place. I mean, I've been up to 15. I haven't hit 20 miles an hour. I mean, 15 is pretty fast.
Pretty good.
There's nothing in front of you.
Watch out for fire hydrants.
But it'll drive over pretty. We've put up like 2x4s, 4x4s. Doesn't even flinch. It just drives right over. And to be honest, I have never lost control of the bike the entire time I've ever been riding it. I mean, there's been a couple of hardware failures, but I've never lost control of the bike. It's actually really safe. And the nicest thing about it is I grab the brake and the bike comes back and I put both my feet down. I mean, I'm like this. Police officers love that as opposed to the Segway scooter, because like you're on a Segway scooter, stop! If I want to grab somebody, I want my feet to be on the ground. So, and then running somebody down, you're running somebody like next to them, like, but you could actually grab them and get off this thing in mid-pursuit, so they like that too. Anybody else?
How long have you been? How long is when you had your first prototype that you took out on the road? How long ago was that?
Oh, we probably 3.5 years ago.
So it's been rideable for 3.5 years.
Without steering.
Well, that was when I had the first bike out.
Mm-hmm.
This one's been riding for about 1.5 years.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
So as far as patents versus trade secrets, it seems like this kind of thing could be reverse engineered without too much trouble by, say, the Chinese.
Yeah, we did a lot of investigations on what's public domain right now, because so much of it. I mean, they've been working on this stuff for since the 40s. How do you do one wheel, whatever. So the steering's kind of a gray area. Certainly, balance technology is all public domain. Putting handlebars out in front of something, okay. So what we looked at is really drilling down on this electromechanical brake, because if you go faster than 14 miles an hour, if you do the math, dumping that much energy back into a battery with regenerative braking is almost impossible. I mean, you start melting wires and the batteries can't suck it up fast enough. So, the Segway scooter does pretty well. It's still
this is regenerative. Sorry.
right now this is regenerative, but on the production bike, it's the mechanical disc brake that's really going to allow you to go faster than 14 miles an hour. If you want to start hitting 20 miles an hour, it's a huge amount of energy. If I wanted to
That's so
stop,
cool. I didn't even know that it was regenerative.
Yeah. So yeah, you grab the brake, it drives out in front of you, and it starts turning the motors into generators, and they're putting all that energy back into the battery.
Yeah, well that's cool. I mean, nobody's going to be like panic stop and be like, I just totally lost so much energy there.
Well, right.
I go another 20 feet.
Right. Yeah, for me, the use case is I'm grinding down this big hill in San Francisco with a 260-pound police officer, and I want to stop in the middle of the hill. So that's where we started to go with. We really have to have an aggressive mechanical system.
How much does it weigh right now?
This thing's 160, but we added it up on the production bike. It's going to be about 110 because the batteries are lighter. It's going to be all aluminum. So
Is it a lithium ion?
yeah, we're going to do lithium-ion pull-out battery. It's going to be a 36 amp hour, 36-volt battery. Huge amount of electrical power. So for a personal transportation, it's not a toy at all.
You keep mentioning police officers. Have you been talking to police?
Yeah, we talked to Vancouver Police and both Portland, and then we got a letter of intent from Portland Patrol, the security people downtown, and they've been out and on the bike and said like, yeah, we'll ride that thing all over any.
Additionally, one of the benefits of the Segway is the added height,
Right.
perceptual height. Like people see that as more authoritative.
Right.
Is there plans to make maybe a larger, taller? This is Portland after all. This is to make police officers look short.
Well, the truth is that the police officers don't like that part of it.
Right.
A, because you're not on eye level and at peer level with people, so it's intimidating. Second, they say in a crowd, you can see the Segway guy for a mile away.
Easily.
Yeah, so both of them, I've come to realize that you want to create community with these vehicles. And the other beautiful thing about the bike is you stand next to somebody and it's a leg-to-leg interface, so it feels very soft. You know, especially going into an elevator with 6 people, nobody even flinches. They're more asking, oh, that's cool. But you go in there with a Segway scooter with these big wheels on the outside, and they're like, whoa! You know, like, what are you? It's weird. You know, you wouldn't learn this until you actually start riding the product around and discover these things. But
Have you let your daughter ride it?
you know, she hasn't ridden it because she just hasn't been around enough to. I ended up moving out of my house and stuff, and splitting up and selling the house, and as part of my growth path, you know, towards discovering that I'm not, you know, the guy that I really thought I was. So now I'm dating this awesome yoga goddess, and
Just built yourself a motorcycle.
and she's kind of into it. So life's different now. Go
That's
ahead.
the first part, but what's the peak horsepower, and what do you think customers want as far as recharge times?
Right. Peak horsepower is about 5 horsepower, which is plenty for personal transportation. It's got 2 of the biggest electric scooter motor, like your basic recumbent bike kind of thing. There's a motor, and which pilots a full-size adult around easily. So I've got 2 of those. And then the batteries are going to be lithium ion. If you buy the little laptop charger, it's like 5 hours. If you want to buy the big $150 mega charger, it's an hour and a half. And it's a replaceable battery, so I can pull it out, carry it like a suitcase up to my apartment, or have 2, one in the trunk, or one at work. You know, that I can ride to work and AB it and ride home. So a lot of flexibility. Go ahead.
A, how do I take a date on this?
Okay.
And B, how do I lock it up?
Lock it up would be bike lock to the bike chain or the bike post. It's got a big bar in the front. And girlfriend would be get her one.
I see.
That's right.
Handlebars isn't really an
How about a
option.
sidecar?
Yeah, and then stuff like the baby care, the baby seats, right? Or the place to mount your chickens,
Little green baby launcher.
Right. Yeah. We'll have saddlebags and stuff like that. Go ahead.
What was the name of your band?
The name of my band? Oh, No Beverage.
No Beverage.
Yes.
I heard of them.
That's all right. We opened for the Zombie Surfers and Angry Red Hairstyle. Yes. So, any other questions?
Well, I'm wondering about the process of finding markets, discovering markets for you. It sounds like that's been as much a discovery process as anything else. I mean, it started with that's a cool thing to make.
Right.
Not here's a demand that needs to be filled necessarily.
Right.
So, in the business part of it, you know,
Right.
has it just been sort of lucky that he played with it and found like, oh, cops like it, you know?
I mean, to be honest, I built it because I felt like it, and so it violates all of those rules. But I'll have to say that what it does map to is prototype often to understand a market. So what it did is it sort of like, by putting this thing in there, it created this space. So it created this creative space around the product to allow me to interact with not only the product but with the market. And one of my favorite statements is, if you're going to build if you're going to design a plug, understand the socket, that the plug plugs into. So it allowed me to understand the socket, which is urban transportation and how people interact with products like this. And it wasn't until I went to ride it on the train I discovered, oh, the guy on the loudspeaker didn't say anything.
Right.
And the people in the lobby didn't go, hey, you can't even bring your bicycle into the lobby sometimes, and somehow this thing it's weird, So yeah, it was sort of, and I'll have the third component to that too was a really important thing, is to discover your why am I doing this, and project a why around your company to a point where people embrace the why before they even care about your products. If you have a really strong why am I doing this that resonates with people, they're not even looking at the specs on your products. They want to align themselves to the product and integrate the product to display their group and their community and their standing in that community. Because if you're selling just on features, it's a race to the game on price. So this has been a nice opportunity for me to create this sense of why. And I've discovered the why over time and realizing, I'm actually kind of passionate about this urban transportation thing. There's a lot of fixed infrastructure that pisses me off. I got to get my car all the way out of the garage and down onto the street and then park it in somebody else's underground garage just to go buy some milk that's 10 blocks away, which is just far enough where I don't want to walk. So that, why can't I get on this? And if all the traffic's slugged up at the light, what if I just kind of backed up, spun around, and cut through this lobby and went back through the dumpster, up to the park, and I can't do that on a motorcycle. I can't do that on an electric scooter. I can't even do that on a bicycle. It's like riding a freaking pine cone down the street with all this stuff sticking off of it. I got to get off and or throw it up on my shoulder. It's just turned out to be kind of an interesting thing. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does.
So you keep talking about prototyping often. What is your prototyping process, and what kind of things do you use to prototype with?
I think the things that come to mind first when it comes to prototypes is don't try to solve any more than one or two problems at a time. So every prototype needs to solve just a couple incremental things, and all that other stuff that you'd love to do on this prototype rev, oh, that'd be cool to have the flip down, fold out, like little LED powered. Fuck that. I'm just going to solve the thing between here and there. And that's been great, because then you don't get so emotionally involved in the prototype. Sometimes prototypes last an hour. I built prototypes that was just like, is this thing even going to be anywhere near, this idea that's in my head? Like, oh, that's stupid. Let's do this other thing. Sometimes it's just proportion, let's just slap together some plywood and stand on it, and just get a sense of, where are my critical numbers? What's my seat height? Where should the handlebars be? Great. Now I can take that and put it in my CAD model, and now I'm designing something that's a little close. And, software, my God, just keep it absolutely simple. So.
Given those critical numbers and the variation of people, you have different sizes in mind for production.
Right now,
variability.
Yeah, so right now it's going to have 2.5 inches of suspension travel, and I'll have a shock in there that has the adjustment ring, so I can, depending on how heavy you are, kind of range it in that way. I'm going to have 3 different size seats, so the super skinny seat, the fat seat, and the super big fat seat. So that's the way I'm going to handle it right now. Because I didn't want to have an adjustable seat that looks kind of dorky. I don't know. So that's where I ended up. But you could have the super big thing. Go ahead.
Do we get to try it out?
I'd like to let you guys at least putt around on it, but it's already down to a red light, so I can't. It's just about dead.
What's the projected range? Maybe you already said it. But what do you like range?
30 miles is kind of where we ended up. It's serious. I mean, it's a 32 amp hour battery. I mean, it's like 2.5 times what's in a Segway. Those electric scooters you see, not electric scooters, but electric e-bikes that have that pretty fat battery. That's a 10 amp hour battery. We've got 32, so it's 3.5 times the amount of power that's an electric bike.
Where'd you put it?
In the production bike, it's going to be all right up in here. So a big kind of a teardrop shape with a handle on it, so you can pull it out and carry it. And it'll weigh about 20 pounds. So it's an assemblage of those cylindrical lithium-ion batteries that are in production, low cost. So that's where our approach is for that. Anything else?
How much is a range decrease battery when you're in a city like San Francisco or somewhere, Seattle, where you have a lot of hills?
It's regenerative braking, when you're coming down the hill, so you kind of pick it back up. But if you ride it hard, it probably goes down probably 30% because electric motors get hot and you end up dumping a lot of energy. So that's why we wanted to just lots of battery. I mean, pack as much in there as you can. And the nice thing about that too is I can load up the battery half full with these cylindrical batteries and do a 15 amp hour battery for $350, or you can do the $600 battery and deal with it that way. It's pretty aggressive. We've gone up some pretty steep hills. I haven't really had the time to get my protractor out and look at how steep of an incline. You know that on the Esplanade, there's that spiral ramp that goes down. We ride up that. So it scared me. My rider, we were down there shooting a video, and I lost track of what he's doing. I looked down there, and here he goes, up the hill, and then it comes back down. I go, oh, dude. Have you guys ever heard of the Unicycle Bastards?
No.
Oh my God, it's like a hockey team on unicycles. They're my test team. I mean, they do polo and jousting and everything. They're a bunch of burners. Jeez. I gave them the bike for 2 weeks and I got it back all scuffed up. And
So you mentioned saddlebags. You were talking about doing some accessories?
yeah, we'll do saddlebags and little soft bags, and then of course you gotta have the tube for your yoga mat.
I mean, if you look at that you're looking at a Scion, I mean, that's a great infrastructure to add on to. I mean, you could have a whole
Totally.
just dedicated to customizing.
iPhone dock, we're thinking about the hide-and-seek GPS app, kind of thing. So yeah, anything else? Is that it?
One last question.
Go ahead.
You kind of mentioned when you were at Earth Day, bring on terrain. Do you think it could jump a curve?
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. 2.5 inches of travel should be able to just go, bah, I want to ride that when just seriously go out there and get some air out and bring it down. And I don't know, because the gyro is so responsive that the minute the tire sits down, it knows exactly where it is, and it'll just adapt to it. So it can actually be a lot of fun. There's a whole technology roadmap ahead of this that I'm just anxious to get involved in. And one of them, for example, is if I go hard into a turn, your center of gravity kind of lays in towards the middle of the turn, and the wheel actually has to cover more ground. So could I do a program looking at the accelerometers and watching the tilt and speeding the wheel up and do some really tight, cutting curves like that, and then lay the bike back over the other way, whip it back around this way? And I don't know. I don't know. We could get there.
Chip your ride.
And then do X Games competitions and.
Just change the program.
Yeah, right.
Acrobatic.
You could buy those off the website.
Well, I think actually starting your, Rhino polo team as a publicity scheme.
Right.
All right, probably a stupid question. Why the name Rhino?
My daughter came up with that too. It's from a video game, and it stands for "Rip You a New One."
Not a stupid
It
question.
was. We don't. It's a problem because we call in my business advice. It's just call it an acronym. Just tell them it's an acronym. I said, all right, and then they start guessing. What? Ride your nuts off? Or so, Anything else, you guys?
I think
Okay.
you wore us down.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, let's get so the next meeting commences on Tuesday, the 14th of April, with Stefan Andren of Crown Lab. Crown Lab is a Portland, Oregon-based design company creating and manufacturing timeless products for commercial and residential spaces. Their deliberate and thorough creative process results in elegant solutions with an iconic functionality. Their 3 distinctive sliding door hardware systems feature exposed bearings and celebrate the inherent beauty in raw materials. There'll be stuff on the website and check out. So, great. Thanks again. Yes, I should.
Say again? Okay, well, let's take a little closer look at it. So